All right, Sierra Leone decides 2023. Today marks 299 days since the presidential election date was announced in March of 2022 by the Electoral Commission Sierra Leone. This is exactly 167 days from today to polling day, June 24. With 17 registered political parties in the country, all but one has not set to elect or select their presidential candidate. The 2022 constitution of the ruling Sierra Leone People's Party dictated that whoever becomes the president is the leader and automatically becomes the party's presidential candidate. That provision gives the ticket of the party to President Julius Maada Bio as the only known presidential candidate with only 167 days to polling day. But the SLPP is yet to announce its running mate with Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallow, the current vice president and deputy leader of the party. The opposition All People's Congress party is still organizing its lower level primaries, which has been marred with internal violent conduct and accusations being traded of manipulation and rigging. Yet almost every week there is a declaration of intent by stalwarts of the party for the post of flag bearer. The National Grand Coalition is the second party after the SLPP that has held its National Delegates Conference with the election of national executives, but no flag bearer. The party's 2018 presidential candidate, Dr. Kande Koleyum Kela, is being speculated to becoming the running mate of the SLPP. He is very silent on this claim, but has been spotted with the SLPP leader after he asked him to come back home. The Coalition for Change is in a quagmire with clear division that led to an injunction slammed on the executives, preventing them from acting sane. The party's 2018 presidential candidate, who doubled as the fired vice president, Chief Alhaji Samuel Samsumana, is among those interested in the post of the flag bearer for the opposition APC. The Unity Party has been warned by the Political Parties Registration Commission that political parties are national outfits and not personal properties owned by individuals. The 2018 presidential candidate Femi Claudius Cole is still running for the post, and the party challenging the PPRC and accusing it of intimidation and pushing threats. Tonight, we're looking at the preparations and exploring the potentials of those interested to run for president. My name is Samuel Wise-Bangure, and this is AYV on Sunday. All right, good evening and a very warm welcome to AYV on Sunday on Channel 33. Today we are delving on the preparations of the 2023 general elections and assessing the potentials of those interested to run for president. As always, we bring people who are in touch with the issues. Tonight I have a star-studded panel to help me unpack the conversation for the next 2 hours. I have with me Barrister Ibrahim Tomi, who is Executive Director for Center for Accountability and the Rule of Law. Good evening and Happy New Year to you. Right.
Good evening, Samuel. I'm pleased to be here. Happy New Year to you as well.
All right, I have the 2018 presidential candidate and acting chair of the Consortium of Progressive Political Parties, Femi Claudius Cole. Good evening and Happy New Year to you.
Good evening. Always a pleasure, Samuel. Happy New Year to you and to everyone watching.
All right, thank you. I have the founder for Project 1808, Professor Alhaji Njai. Good evening and Happy New Year to you, Prof.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year and greetings to everyone.
All right, to those of you watching us on Channel 33 on AYV Television, on DSTV Channel 399, listening to us on Radio FM 101.7 or following us on our different social media handles, especially the AYV News Facebook page where you have the opportunity to be part of the conversation. Share your thoughts, ask your questions, just tailor them to the issues being raised here tonight. You are welcome and Happy New Year to all of you. Let me start off the conversation with you, Ibrahim Tomi, for obvious reasons. We have barely 167 days to polling day, to June 24. And the people of Sierra Leone are yet to know who the presidential candidates would be. From which lot would they choose? A man or a woman to become the next president. We've seen just the SLPP by virtue of the new constitution. President Julius Maada Bio is the only known presidential candidate as at now. What does that bring to the mix?
I mean, it's just that uncertainty, not only for the voters, but even for the many, many candidates, especially for the opposition, APC, who are now coming up. It means that there is a really long road, and I hope not, but tough battle ahead within the party, and you know the implications that such internal, sort of contest for positions and power within the party could have for the party's planning and even sort of competing ability ahead of the elections. But for the voters, and I'm one of them, I should say, it is really important that you have enough time to know who is going to be the candidate, so that in addition to the many issues that would like really to dominate discussions and lead up to 2023 June 24th elections, we would also like to know our presidential candidates. Like you said, we already know that the president, incumbent, is running for the SLPP, but we do not know for the main opposition, APC, and NGC, Unity Party, and the other parties. It is important that citizens know. Having said that, it is still within their right. In other words, there is no legal breach at the moment, because there is a date for the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone where these candidates will be nominated and then basically confirmed as the flag bearer and running mate of their various political parties. So for the purpose of the law, they are still within their rights, but for citizens or voters, as I've said, the more time you have to scrutinize, to know what their platforms are. Already, ECSL has not declared a date for the commencement of campaigns, but if you follow what is happening, obviously the advantages of incumbency you see out there now. The president is going out there, basically every opportunity he gets is reminding citizens of what he has done, what he has not been able to do, the challenges that his government faces, and things like that. So you can very well argue that, in a sense, he is ahead. Now, the earlier the other parties get to sort that out, the better for them as well. And also for us, the citizens, so that we know what they have as an alternative to what the current administration has offered over the last 5 years.
All right. I'll bring the politician in last. Let me bring, Dr. Njai. The same question I'll put forward. The only known presidential candidate for the 2023 June 24th elections is President Julius Madabi of the ruling SLPP. And like Ibrahim submitted, he is now, canvassing, touring the country, and even out of the country, showcasing what he has done as a candidate, which in technical terms is putting forward his report card and giving reasons why he should be given a second chance. We've not seen an opportunity of other political parties because they've not gotten those that should front the ticket or the face of the party to become president. So for the purpose of democracy and giving enough time to citizens to be able to scrutinize, to be able to see and judge firsthand, what does this mean for us at this time?
So that's a very loaded question, and it's challenging to answer, but I'll try to look at it from different, lots of facets. I agree with my previous panelists in the sense that, the current incumbent is already out there and has, is showcasing something that looks like a campaign. It's always will look like an advantage in some ways or the other, but again, there is also always a challenge wherein the opposition hasn't shown us, like, or many of we know some other opposition leaders who are, candidates. Madam Cole is here with us. But in terms of the leading, opposition parties, we sort of don't have like a front runner at the moment for those parties. It can work against them in the sense that citizens don't have enough time to vet those people, because in standard democracies you need time to vet those candidates, know about them, know their policies, know other things. But on the other hand also, it could be that what I call the surprise devil. Surprise devil could be a challenge for an incumbent where you have someone springs up right towards elections and you don't know them. And it creates a problem for incumbent. You know, I will tell you an example. You know, you had Clinton had a very good track record in the U.S., and then you had Al Gore, who had a long time as a vice president. Everybody thought who could be the president to be. And then George Bush shows up. You thought it was a very disorganized Republican team up to elections, and then all of a sudden the surprise comes up. George Bush wins. So this is sort of, it's sort of the scenarios you kind of becomes very difficult for any sitting president, because you really need to know also who is against you, and that surprise factor could be the dark horse that creates a problem for you. The other aspect is also that we have to look at is about our democracy, the health of our democracy. This is about this election, this coming election is fundamental to the democracy of this country, to seeing how our institutions, have the resilience and the strength of our institutions over the years. This, to me, is one of the most critical elections that this country faces. As a country, we cannot hide around it that we are very polarized at the moment. And all over the world, democracy is facing a challenge. You look at America, look at Republicans having up to 12 times to get a speaker. 13. You get in England. In England, you see the issues, Boris Johnson and all that, and Prime Minister one resigning within 2 weeks. And the challenge is that democracy, as in terms of the elections that we are doing, has not been delivering for the populace. And so when I look at this current election, it is going to be the biggest test this country faces, because we had a change election in 2018. And what are we talking about now? It's 4 years later. Do the citizens see that change? And so it's going to be, rightly a referendum on the current president, but it's also going to be a test of the aspirations of citizens of this country as to where we want to go. And that's what is going to be really important.
All right. We'll come to those details. Femi, before I ask you about the preparations of the Unity Party, or what are the plans of the Unity Party putting out presidential candidates? Let's first go to the controversy that is there with the party and the PPRC. You invited the PPRC to witness your constituency executive election, or district level elections, and the commission wrote back to you saying, no, I mean, we cannot participate because we did not remember where you invited us to cover lower levels, like from district the ward, constituency level, and all of that. So what does the Unity Party make of that? Where does your structure start?
Well, and not only after they wrote us to say that they had no idea about our ward and constituency elections.
Right.
Now, I would have thought, in terms of doing one's due diligence, you would first of all pick up a copy of the Unity Party's constitution, which they do have at their office, and peruse it. And once you have looked at it, you would then, in case for any reason, whether the executive secretary or the chairman has forgotten what it says in the 1991 Constitution or even their act, I would have thought I would pick both up. Pick up the 1991 Constitution, take a look at it, take a look at the PPRC Act, and then pen your letter. They then send us a letter saying that we didn't do the constituency or the ward elections. So I wrote back. And I wrote a very comprehensive letter, which apparently caused them some dismay. And I directed them to our constitution And not only did I direct them to our constitution, I also gave them a background as to why our constitution was crafted the way it was. You're starting a party from an idea, from a concept, where you do not have the numbers, you do not have the population, and you are not spread around the entire country the way you would like to. So we crafted a constitution whereby we start with the district level elections, the district level executive, and each district level chairman and his team has the responsibility of creating and engaging members to man his constituency. So it kind of goes from the district chairman to the constituency chairman, who then engages the ward. So as the years roll by, the party can grow in numbers and go down to the levels. Keeping in mind, it also says in our constitution that every member that is paid up can participate in the district elections. So there's no case of anybody who is a member being excluded. But because we do not have the numbers of the two larger parties, the 10,000, 20,000, we tailor-made it to allow us to grow.
Let me read the second paragraph from the letter written by the political parties registration on the 28th of December 2022. And it says, secondly, you spoke about how they should have taken your party's constitution,
yes,
the national constitution, and all of that. So the second paragraph is saying, secondly, be reminded that your party's constitution must be consistent with the national constitution, the political parties acts, and democratic principles and practices. As you may be aware, there are electoral colleges for all cadres of lower level intra-party elections, save ward level, where the general membership votes and through which the first electoral college is constituted for the constituency executive elections. So with this, and you're saying you've framed the operations of the party because of lack of
for growth in building a strong foundation.
Where does that just put the Unity Party first in its quest for national membership, growth, and at the end of the ultimate goal, winning a national election?
It puts the Unity Party on a sensible course. Because, say, Samuel, I want to build a 13-story building. Do you start with the 13th floor and then gradually come down to the foundation? No, you don't. You start with a solid foundation and then you build on it. And it's amazing the sentence that he wrote, that our constitution should be in line with the national. And I then wrote them back to say, are we talking about the Unity Party constitution that you vetted, you read, and you gazetted? Or are we talking about some other new constitution that we are not aware of? So I don't understand exactly where the commission was coming from. And the Constitution of Sierra Leone is not a mobile document. It's fixed. It is written. It is documented. We can all pull it up and read it. So when you write a letter accusing the party of contravening the Constitution, usually, I'm not a lawyer, but I do see when lawyers write letters, they quote the pertinent sections that are being violated, and the sections of the PPRC Act that are being violated. So we're having a meeting with them tomorrow, and I'm very excited for them to actually show me parts of the Constitution that I obviously missed, and for them to then explain by what exactly they mean in their letter, because political party is guided by its constitution. Before you can be registered, you submit your constitution, you submit your manifesto, hopefully they read it, before they vet it, before it is gazetted. Now, if the chairman was to come back to the party and say, having had a second look at your constitution, there are areas we think you need to reform. That's a conversation to be had. That we welcome. Yes, let us sit on a round table. We were also new. So there are areas where we could have made mistakes, but the PPRC does what it should do last, first. And the topic we're discussing today is why are political parties not having their flag bearers? Why are they not having their conventions? And the PPRC as an institution, Mr. Njai talks about institutions being weak. The institution that is meant, what is your mandate? Your mandate is to guide political parties, regulate political parties. I'm hoping be a parent body to political parties, whereby we should have an open-door policy even to go to your office and say, we're having this issue. But what do we see the PPRC doing? We see the PPRC being very partisan, choosing organizations which they are their pet organizations and people that they seem to embrace, that even use their office as their office address.
Partisan in what sense?
Now, there are two organizations. There's the Consortium of Progressive Political Parties, and there's APA. And APA seems to be very much cozy with the PPRC. I'm not jealous.
Is it not because it's the recognized umbrella body by political parties?
What made them recognized? What evidence, what documentation do they have that made them recognized? APA is as loose an organization as the consortium.
I should go back, even under the leadership of the now Honorable Mohamed Bangura, when he was chair of the United Democratic Movement. APA has always been working with the PPRC, and they've always been there, in and out, even up to when he handed over to Augusta James Timmer, who was the chair of the NDA. Yes, and I think they should. I'm not saying that is wrong in any shape or form. What I am saying is, when the consortium parties decide to leave APA and form the consortium, he should engage the consortium equally. Like the APA.
As he does APA. It is not for him to say, oh, you na me real pikin, you na step pikin, so you they sleep na the kitchen na door, and you can come into the bedroom. As the parent body, we wrote a letter at the onset, at the conception of COP, and he refused to see us.
The chairman? The
chairman, yes. And I have all those letters. And it is not for you to cherry pick which organization. Call us. If there are issues there that you think we can tweak, have a conversation. Oh. He has never met with the consortium.
Okay. You have a meeting tomorrow. We'll definitely take it up from there. Let me bring in Ibrahim. So we're talking about political parties, especially the opposition parties, not, being organized in the sense that we're seeing too many controversies. The NGC just had its National Delegates Conference. We've seen letters of petition for something, and people and members of the party accusing the entire running of the elections as something that was undemocratic and just suiting certain people. We're seeing what is happening in the APC, the lower level primaries. There are infights, violent conduct are everywhere, and of course accusations being traded. Oh, someone is manipulating, rigging, trying to favor, and all of these. And these are the, well, so to speak, bigger opposition political parties, including the C4C, that is clearly divided, that the court has to come in and say, you know what, you guys, let's put a hold. None of you would act in the name of C4C as executive members. So with all of this, how do we then get opposition parties to be serious, and front the SLPP?
You know, it sounds really familiar. If we have followed the recent political history of opposition parties in Sierra Leone, you realize that they always have challenges whilst in opposition. What we're discussing is not peculiar to the APC or C4C. SLPP had their own fair share of trouble whilst they were in opposition. You know the full story somewhere. Having said that, I think we should all be concerned by, the ever-increasing noise about, and perhaps the right noises about, rigging of intra-party election, electoral processes, the violence, I mean, that's completely unacceptable. So I'd like to make a big point on that issue. I've always argued, you know, when we talk about rigging elections, oftentimes the assumption is that elections are really rigged by the elections officers. Elections are largely rigged by political parties. Everywhere. How many electoral officers are you going to have at one police station? For the big political parties like APC and SLPP, everywhere you find a ballot box, they will have representatives, right? At least at the voting stage, right? At the voting stage, they cannot influence that. Perhaps you can say at the processing stage, right? At the counting, maybe, not even counting because they'll be there, maybe at the processing stage, tallies, I don't know. But I'm saying for on voting day, you will have representatives there. It is oftentimes these political parties, especially in places that they consider to be their strongholds, they do it. They try, and they know what I'm talking about. So sometimes when we as activists, as journalists, as citizens, good citizens, I suspect, give the impression that elections are rigged or compromised by only state officials or election management bodies, that's not true. So when you hear intra-party processes, people claiming that election has been rigged, you know it's not strange in the way these processes are organized. I had my friend, Professor Njai, talking about, oh, this is a test for our democratic institutions. I mean, very big test, but I hope we are also saying to ourselves, as voters, as leaders of these political parties, that we have a responsibility to behave right, to do the right thing, to do the normal thing. I cannot for the life of me understand why you have to stab your party member, your colleague, comrade, or your party member in the SLPP. I mean, when you talk about stabbing, by the way, it's not unique. As I said, nothing that happens today is strange, Samuel. But sometimes, depending on where you sit, and which side of the divide belong, you accentuate some things. There's nothing that we're talking about here that started happening yesterday. You go back, you can find evidence of it in the past. What we have not been able to do as a people is to really try and say to ourselves that regardless of who does it, when it happens, it is wrong and it must stop. So in terms of all of these wrangling, the infighting and all of that, it is bad for these parties because I heard Professor Njai's point about, yeah, you might have a surprise package and string a surprise within weeks. That's possible. It's very possible. But in our context, you know, all the fights that we're talking about, all the acts of violence, the allegations of rigging and all of that, imposing candidates or perhaps leaders, it's going to cause cracks. It's going to, people will say the party may implode. Listen, for the APC and SLPP, these are big political parties. They may reorganize and, I mean, we were talking about the SLPP, right? Before 2018. You thought they were so divided that they couldn't get together. Once all of that was resolved, they reorganized and fought hard and won. You could say the same of APC. These are the two main political parties. They can do that. But what you want to minimize, especially if you're in a position, you don't have all the privileges of incumbency, you don't have all the resources that can be in the world. What you want to do is to manage these internal democratic processes to the extent that you can, so that when all is said and done, you can still keep the party, for the most part, whole and intact, so that you really putting up a strong fight. But if you cannot do that, and at the end of the day, you have a presidential candidate, or you have your district chairperson, and you have in that same district 10, 20% of people who say, now they post it, and they may not they vote safe. What will happen most times is, in this place, people will vote for SLPP because there are people who never vote for SLPP or for APC. That's just what it is. But what they will say is, I'm not mixed. Let them try it. Now they want power. You're losing, so it's possible. Yes.
This concept that we have so accepted that, you know, these political parties, be it APC or SLPP, they can be disorganized for as long as they want. I mean, a few weeks to elections, they can come together, and of course they would spark surprise. what does that really mean for our democracy? I'm asking this question. Let me take, in 2017, I covered the midterms in the US. And I was opportune to speak with the California State Party Chairman for Republicans, Sean Steele then. And for him, they would give, for example, Ibrahim Tomi, a symbol to contest for either a governor, because they believe Tomi as an individual, 80% can deliver the seat. So the party comes in with maybe just 20% contribution to you winning that seat. But in this part of the world, in Sierra Leone specifically, it's about the party you belong to. It's not about whether Tomi. So how do we change that concept and get, serious conversations in, so that when Tomi is given the symbol, Tomi is given enough time to unadulteratedly, unedited, you're able to espouse your policies so that we can make better decisions as to why we should vote in Tomi.
It's an important point you raise, and it's really largely as a result of our social and political culture. We are all raised in a certain context in this country. You're growing up, perhaps from the southeast, you're made to believe that you are SLPP, Northwest. In certain homes, you're made to believe that you are APC. And that's how our society has come to accept it. I will have to cut off my head to convince some people that I do not belong to the SLPP. I've never belonged to a political party. I've never attended a party meeting. I've never even met the... No. My only crime, I'm from the southeast. I'm Mendiman. I'm SLPP. That's fine, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't stick. I couldn't care less.
Right.
But that is what explains the way politics works or doesn't work in this country. Because as a Southeasterner, I'm expected to vote for SLPP. So even if SLPP nominates a Limba man or a Timni man, right? Mendes will vote for that Limba and Timni. APC nominates a Mende man, Timni man, or Mende man, right? In McKinney, they will vote for that candidate. So this nonsense about ethnicity is hogwash.
Right.
What it is about in this country is the role of government in the control and distribution of resources. That's bottom line. We should just stop fooling ourselves and really making poor people victims or making them prey of our... It's just nonsense. What it is really is about control of resources. So the idea is SLPP, Mende, Timni, Limba, APC. So if APC, doesn't matter your ethnic background, gives you that symbol, APC supporters will support you because they identify with APC. It's not about your ethnicity. Think of APC. My friend and former classmate, Yaya Tunis, right, is Mende from Pujon. Who in the APC looks at him to say, you're not Mende man? No, he's right up there. You go to SLP, you think of the number of Northerners from Parliament, these are Northerners. It doesn't really matter your ethnicity. So the point I'm trying to make, Samuel, is that the reason that keeps happening is because it is the party, unfortunately, that controls us. We love our parties. We are more loyal to our parties than the national flag.
Yes.
We can defend our party. We can spill blood. See, the amount of blood that has been spilled just in lower level elections for our political party. Across parties. But you are never going to be that angry if you see a public official misusing public funds. We're not angry about corruption in this country. We're just ambivalent. It depends on who steals and what time. It's the ambivalence that is really confronting our collective effort to address national problems.
As you talk about having this across political parties, Professor Njai, as Ibrahim talked about having this crisis across political parties, especially when in opposition. I was in Kenema in 2017. I covered the National Delegates Conference of the SLPP. And we were there. The process was ongoing, power outage, several times and all of that. But then it took one man. It took one man to come there and make a statement, and everything was okay. So we're there. The then candidate Julius Madabi was not, he was in Keneba, but did not show, was not around the center where the conference was being held. But then there were problems. So it took him to come and he made a statement, and everything was fine. So how do we get these influential figures of faces or names in political parties to help. And because looking at the APC right now, many of them are saying, oh, we are a government in waiting, we are going to win the 2023 elections. But with what is happening and having many people coming forward to run for the flag bearer post of the APC, it appears there's no clear path right now for the APC. So how do we get that sorted?
So I think the fundamental thing is that, to me, we have not actually started doing politics, real politics, as it should be, right? What we essentially have practiced in all these years, and political parties, most of them, excluding someone here that I respect, Madam Cole, that I've seen who's been consistent, has been about, now we turn for it. How do we get onto power and get get something? It's not about real political ideologies. What we have not done in this country is to think transformational ideologies. Coming into politics with a thinking around transformational leadership. So what we have had is about, for the last 59 to 60 years now since independence, it's about party agenda, minus the few years of NPRC rule. It's about this political party comes in, and then everyone else in the opposition is just looking at contrary. It's not about putting forward those big transformational ideas. So if you look at the 4 years of this government, look at the opposition, minus someone here like Madam Cole that I've seen consistently putting out the most important things, whether it's on media, whether standing up and saying things and coming up with ideas that might be transformative. You don't see that, even from our largest opposition parties. That's why it's still a challenge today. 6 months in, we don't know who. Because it is about, elections by themselves do not create the difference in society. You could be doing them and just change one to the other. It could be very cosmetic. What we are talking about change, but the change could be very small horizontal shifts. This government will be in power, we bring 100 bus. Now this would bring 200 bus. That is our transportation solution. This one did this and this one did this. So when you look at our discourse in Sierra Leone, it's all about, oh, when we were in power, we did this. And this one says, oh, you did this. So we did. It's not about saying, where is the holistic transformational thinking? And this has hurt us from independence. Right from the period when we had a challenge of having a national agenda, we now move towards party agendas. And now it has become a thing that resources has now been tied to regions and ethnicity, such that everyone feels that if you're in the southeast or south, other areas, you must vote this party, because if this party doesn't win, I'm not going to get any resources. Development is not going to come to my place because of this, and this. And also the challenge is that us, the Sierra Leonean populace, have bought into this, whether it's in our mindset, whether it is in our own take, that you find that we have not been able to rise above this as Sierra Leoneans and begin to look at how do we deliver transformational change in our societies. And politics has to be ideological. You were talking about covering the US elections or Europe or in other places in 2017 or 2018. You get into doing these things because people have a fundamental ideology around what they believe in. Like, for instance, we talk about transportation solution in Freetown, or about the aspect of our whole development enterprise being more based on gifts dependency rather than being of economic freedom? Where is the ideology in the country about self-reliance, about making us, as Sierra Leoneans, able to deliver on some important things? Where is the culture that is driving the young Sierra Leoneans to believe in the spirit and identity of being Sierra Leonean that brings that aspect of national cohesion? So we have to think about politics as not just this, and which is is to me what I will say as a thing here is that we, as a country, we are held hostage. People are held hostage by these two political parties. And that hostage situation is creating a problem for the future of the society.
So as you talk about that, especially the issue of transformative change and the politics we're practicing that is not okay for Sierra Leone. Let me bring in Femi on that. Femi, we've seen a situation where you've brought different political parties together, the Consortium of Progressive Political Parties. What's the aim? Is the aim to just boot out a government or a political party out of power? Or is the aim to see how do we then bring about the transformational change Professor Njai is talking about? Or is it just the usual game? You know what, the SLPP is not okay. Let's kick the SLPP, let us take power, let us regain power. So it's our own turn. So what's the essence of the consortium? The
essence of the consortium, for me, the reason why I'm 100% committed to the consortium is the concept of shared governance, not by turn governance, but people from all over Sierra Leone coming together and watching out for Sierra Leoneans as a whole, coming together and being. There's no sentence that really bugs me like "it has pleased His Excellency." You know, and where we then argue over consultation versus information.
If Femi is elected president today and Femi appoints Samuel, and then the wordings of that would be, it has pleased the president.
The reason why I'm using that as an example is because we see the government making missteps and making missteps with an air of arrogance, where the Constitution actually tells you clearly that you should consult. It doesn't mean that after consultation you have to do what the people you're consulting with say you should do. It means listening to other ideas.
So if the formation of the consortium is to bring about shared power, shared response, shared governance, what model would you devise? How would that happen? What strategy would you use? How?
Well, an interesting thing is, we started the consortium and we start talking. We're all talking about all kinds of issues. And the main thing that I hear and that I say is, it's not just about getting rid of the SLPP. It's about, in 100 days, for the Sierra Leonean in the most remote village in Sierra Leone to realize that there's something different happening now. And it's no good us showing MCC scores, and showing these scores from this country where we're being scored by people who would dare not come and live here on a permanent basis. But for the people themselves to actually feel there's a difference. And when Mr. Njai talks about the polarization of Sierra Leone, it's an area that I am surprised that more of us politicians are not more worried about it. But I guess what we have right now is such, I don't know, some kind of a one-pot politics going on, a politics of distraction, of bombardment, or of cases being adjourned and everybody just being... there's nothing smooth going on in the political base.
So the politicians themselves are distracted?
The institutions are malfunctioning and negatively impacting the political parties. And then the political parties, we also have our issues. So it's just a conundrum of nonsense where you have cases in court. I I didn't go to law school. I'm a nurse. But shoot, I could have adjudicated some of these cases and given a verdict and written my summation or whatever it is the lawyers do. And we have these cases being adjourned and adjourned as if they're almost deliberately being dragged. I mean, look at Unity Party. Now, how much of a threat am I that we now have the entire PPRC showing me some biceps and triceps where there's no need for it, where a simple roundtable discussion could solve. And we're seeing letters being bandied from PPRC to other political parties that are fully packed with insults. Have you read the letter from PPRC to the NGC? I mean, I'm reading it and I'm like, huh? What the hell is going on here? And I look at the letter that PPRC wrote to the PDP, saying we only acknowledge the executive of Prince Coca. That's nonsense. You call people to a round table and you solve it. With all these peace and conflict courses and graduates we have, it's totally unacceptable. And then we have a government that is so, I don't know, is it misguided?
A government you're part of.
A government that I am under, that I am looking up to, saying, oh, we're going to do this. Oh, no, now, last minute, we're doing PR system. And no, we're changing this. And no, we're changing that. And where in all of this do you factor the electorate?
So it brings to mind what role do the political parties, what role can you play? I'm asking this question because if we go back to my government class when I was in secondary school, my government teacher then taught me that opposition political parties are an integral component within the governance structure of the state.
Exactly.
So how do you influence, how do you leverage on that?
Well, we are seeing in this democratic dispensation that is Sierra Leone, we're seeing the dynamics change completely. Look, just the other day I tweeted. What was my tweet? I tweeted because I was a little pissed with the CID. They had a carnival at the CID. And you know, CID's office is close to mine. I couldn't think sitting in my office. And I tweeted, is there not an appropriate venue where the CID can host its carnival? What if there's a murder case, a mass murder case? And you come to the CID to make a complaint. Do you know what people said on my tweet? Bo, you took Congo, sir. The people, they enjoy themselves, then they walk all year round. So, as Tommy was saying, some of it is just in our whole, it's baffling. And we look at ideology, but how much does ideology matter?
Shouldn't that be the hallmark?
That should be the hallmark. But how do we get there? Because now, let me tell you, and the reason why both gentlemen are saying it might be a last minute, but you will see these parties come together so quick, it would be unbelievable. Why? Because when some people go to vote, they do not give a damn, excuse me, about ideology. They are simply looking for the symbol that
is it because they've not been, is it because they've never gotten the opportunity to listen to you guys, you the politicians, having dialogues, espousing your policies, articulating your ideologies to them so that it can sink? But I mean, like Tommy said, they gave birth to us in this country, knowing APC and SIPP, two colors.
Yes.
So it is always these colors. But change in itself is inevitable. So
yes,
we can change that. But how do we change that if you, the politicians, do not give us the opportunity to articulate your policies?
If I could just come
yes, go in, please.
You know, and I think this is why I said at the beginning that this election is critical for our country. Because you see, all over the world, and especially for Africa, you know, in America and Europe, they can afford to mess up with their democracies. Britain can afford to mess up. They've had years and years of technological and societal advancement. So their systems are a little bit resilient, can handle mess up from Boris Johnson. You know, America can handle mess up of Trump. You know, and others. But for us in Africa, it becomes very costly, a test of the systems we have said that this is the system that we are going to utilize to rule ourselves, and to systems that we are going to utilize for social and political organization of our countries. Remember that if democracy fails, the system established, people no longer believe in it. The young people, if they no longer believe in it, if that hope is replaced by despair, we all saw what happened on August 10 as a starking reminder of what could happen if the system that we have put in place is not working. People begin to look for alternatives. And I'm afraid that we are all talking here as Sierra Leoneans. We have, us here in the panel and many others, and I speak for many Sierra Leoneans, that it is important that this system works. Because look at what is happening within the sub-region. It's not far from us. We have to begin to not look in a more like in a narrow window. We have to begin to look with what is happening. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. What are they looking at? Alternative Islamic insurgencies. You are looking at Nigeria being troubled by Boko Haram, having the most powerful army. It's all about, the system that you have established need to work. It's about the institutions working fairly. It's about all those institutions, just like what Madam Cole is talking about here. These systems have to work fairly so that people see it as being fair, as being transparent, as people don't feel like I live in a country where, for instance, if I have to vote, my vote doesn't count. I live in a country where I'm no longer proud to be part of that country. And I live in a country where the other day I was in my room, and the biggest thing I brought these 6 young men to walk and clear around my place. And I was in my room listening to their conversation. Every one of these young men wants to leave Sierra Leone.
Yes.
All of them were talking about the next thing, how they left this country. So how do we as a society, this is the thing about, it's not just politics, it's about creating that hope that there is a future for this system. Because if you replace hope with despair, you know what? Any other person can come with their ideology, and that becomes what people want to follow. And that's why I said it is critical. And this idea of like en masse, I can just wait till elections and I just put anybody, and then we can all just rally against for that person. Because again, if you look at this country right now, the biggest differential for any elections in this country is that 3% independence. That 3% independence. The rest of the country, that 45, 46, whatever, is stuck, between the two parties, right? Now, that independence vote has been the swing. It's the last elections, you saw it, that 2 to 3 percentage points. And that has to come from individuals like us, individuals, many other individuals who are sort of independent. But to me, what is truly important is that we need to begin to do real politics. What we mean by real politics, from the party levels, right? Because all the fighting you see, even at party levels, at the level of lower level elections and all these things, is this concept that now we turn for it. If man did enough for it, it's no longer about service to nation. Nope. Being elected as a council member, being elected as a parliamentarian, being elected as a president, it's about service to your people. The people are your bosses, customers, they are your bosses. It's about delivery. It's about not asking the people to thank you because you've made some road. It's what you went in to do. It's not asking the people to clap for me, hey, you don't work because you built that hospital. It's about the service that you have to, you went in to serve the people. And that's why we gave you, when you are made a honorable or a whatever it is, we gave you a vehicle, we gave you some parks, we gave you this to serve people, and even not to ask for too many raises in parliament as against the interest of the people we are serving. So all of those things are critical for our democratic dispensation.
Let me bring in Tommy. I mean, we're looking at a situation now where we have to we're looking to have enough time to judge the character of those that are coming forward to be the president of the Republic of Sierra Leone. But we're just seeing people, in their parties declaring their intentions to want to. So let's take, for example, the two parties. Well, we've already seen the one party signed off. That signed off. We have President Julius Maada Bio as the candidate there for the elections. The APC, we're seeing different people coming out. We've seen different declarations on Kemosise, Samura Kamara, the controversy around Chief Samuel Samsumana for the same post. We've seen, flyer going out about Kaifala Mara also will be declaring on Tuesday or so for the race, and a host of others. But these are people who've served this very country under the President Julius. Under former President Ernest Bai Koroma. They've signed. We've seen what they've delivered. So I had the opportunity, for example, I had a conversation with Kemosise, and I asked him, and there were things that he said this government should have done, but they didn't do it. These are ideas he had. So I asked him, why were these ideas not put, into action when he was in power? And he served for 10 years as a government minister in different ministries. And for him, well, he was not in charge. Well, he was part of the cabinet that's made decisions to run this country. Chief Alhaji Samuel Samsumana, when he returned in 2017, I interviewed him and I asked him, are you going to be a presidential candidate in the 2018 elections? And he was very certain, yes. And all options are on the table except going back to the APC.
He said that to you?
Yes, on tape. Except going back to the APC, kicked him out of the party and eventually lost his job as the vice president after he was fired by his former boss. But Chief Samuel Samsumana, after the 2018 elections, wrote to the APC that I want to come back. And we're seeing what that is bringing even to the internal practices in the APC, that already the ITGC chairman is being accused of running the bid of Chief Samuel Samsumana because he appears to be the highest funder or financier of the party at the moment. So who really is bears the best character to confront President Julius Maada Bio in 2023?
I have to say that is entirely a matter for the APC. For the people of this country. I'm not talking about the APC.
No,
because there's a process. Before we get to that point, there's a process of electing a flag bearer for their party. At that stage, it is entirely a matter for them. Yes. Now, which is why this conversation is relevant, because the questions that you raised are very important questions for voters like myself. So once that process is concluded, we now get to see the flag bearer, and then we will start asking those questions. So whilst at this stage it is clearly a matter for the
parties,
for the APC, with reference to the examples you made, it is very much important for us as Sierra Leoneans, because ultimately it is about the country. It's about the president of the country. So it doesn't matter which political party you support. It doesn't matter what the political persuasion is. When your president fails, you suffer along with the president and the country, right? Or you suffer along with the country, perhaps not the president. So it is very important that we think through those things. So I had Professor talk about service, right? Oh, you are elected to serve, I like hearing that. You know, like you're fighting, you're really stabbing your party member to get an opportunity to serve. Brother, listen, in this country, people actually, they couldn't care less about what you call service. People pay a bribe if they have to get budgets passed by Parliament. People fight for budgets at budget hearings like it is their personal funds. So the point I'm making is that it's really theoretical at this stage to be talking about service. It is what it's supposed to be, don't get me wrong. But at the heart of it, really. For the most part, I don't say that to say every public official comes in for himself or his people. No, there are people who genuinely want to serve and are serving, and we see that all the time. And this is why I am not one of those who think that we shouldn't commend those who do well. Me, I acknowledge. I give a pat on the back if you're doing well. Because at the end of the day, if we complain that there are issues here and there, and you see people who basically stand out, who do the right thing, commend them, give them a pat, encourage them to do more. That's where I come from. But the point has to be made that we have a long, long way to go. On the issue of transformative ideology or transformative governance, this is a problem. Like the voters, our leaders are thinking about the next election. We're not talking about the next generation, right? And because of the levels of poverty, I guess, and to some extent illiteracy, we are in such mad rush as a people. You come with a 20, 30-year plan, they'll say, what's good, it's a 30-year plan. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. Leadership is about vision. Right. You need a visionary leadership. You set the goals. You say, I have a 30-year plan, but you don't even have a political system that supports your 30-year plan. Do you? You don't. No one is guaranteed more than 5 years under our Constitution. So when we discuss this transformational governance, visionary leadership, long-term plan, take the entire country along, we have to have that conversation in the context of our political system. So that is why there are no quick fixes to our problem. I will make a bold recommendation. It's a great idea. We've had Vision 2025. We've had conference on transformational development under former President Nkrumah. We've had all of these national plans. We have them. So let's give some respect to our leaders, past and present. They've thought about long-term plans. The problem is we do not have a political system and culture really that supports that sort of thinking. If you let's say I want to invest in agriculture, energy, infrastructure, but it requires a 50-year plan, right? But you only have, as a president, a 5-year mandate. So I have had people say, let's have a law, a National Vision Act, where all these development programs are laid out there. So it doesn't matter which party is in power, you cannot depart from that. But then it then makes nonsense of the whole point of our manifesto and having a platform and things like that. So I'm all for visionary leadership, and that's what is required. I'm all for transformational leadership. That's what is needed in this country. But what I'm saying is there is a huge gap that we have not even started talking about, which is that which enables. That's why I'm not a fan of autocracies, right? But if you see,
Yeah, go ahead.
If you see Uganda, Cameroon, the Arab world, right? It's dynasties. So they will say for the next 50 years, Dubai, right? It was within 20 years that they transformed Dubai, because it's basically a dynasty. A dynasty, right? It's a dynasty. It's not like
leadership.
It is.
Leadership is important, but I'm saying leadership is important. Don't get my point. Leadership is important. Leadership is important. But if you start a plan, let's go back to former President Nkrumah. Everyone knows I was critical of former President Nkrumah, but he had some ideas that he would never have a chance to continue with. President Bill comes, he's got his own idea, free quality education as an example. If he doesn't win the 2020 elections, good chance that the next person is not going to continue. And you have no reason to stop him or to hold him accountable for not continuing. So what I'm saying, when we have these great big ideas, and visionary transformational leadership requires big ideas, when we have these big ideas, let us also think about the political context in which those ideas can be implemented, but also a funding plan.
So Samuel, if I can just get in there, I think we should not limit ourselves. You see, when you start to limit yourself and you think small, you achieve small things. You know, Magufuli in Tanzania achieved some of the greatest transformational things within 4 or 5 years of being a leader in Tanzania, right? And to me, what I'm talking about here is about leadership that moves us all up. We shouldn't be thinking about the impossibilities. To me, if you are elected a honorable member, there is no compromise. You are elected to serve. if you are in parks, you need parks to do this, you are doing this, you are doing, that's not what you're elected for. We have to be thinking excellence as a society.
Are we also putting into context, just quickly, just referencing what Ibrahim Tome is saying?
Yes.
Putting into context, for example, President Julius Maada Bio is in power now, was voted in for 5 years.
Yes.
So, and he has beautiful plans. Some of these plans span beyond his tenure, beyond 5 years, maybe some 15, 20, 35 years. In a situation where he does not get the opportunity to continue leading this country as president, what becomes of those plans? Will the next continue or not? And we've seen many have terminated those plans.
So this is why I've always talked about a national agenda. We need a national agenda. We had opportunities for this. Bintumani 1, 2, 3, and all those ones. We've had opportunities. There is always an opportunity by a visionary leadership that comes to this country and says, let's bring everybody together as a country. Let's try to have a national agenda for this country, and an agenda that someone, the villager in Pujehun, agrees upon, the old mother in Kailaun and in Kwenadugu agrees upon, everybody is involved from all functions, levels, and others. So that when we have this national agenda, based also on ideologies around some of our most vexing problems in the country, then we are all going to hold each other accountable on that national agenda. And we hold our leaderships accountable on those agenda. And if we hold our leaderships accountable on those agenda, it means that we, the citizens, spearhead this change. You know, when we talk about things impossible, and I just go to Ghana, I go to Gambia, I go to Senegal. Why are some things working in these countries and it's not working for us? We are limiting ourselves. We are telling ourselves that some things, okay, you know, go work now, we need for, we have to bend. If I'm a civil servant, I cannot just serve, I have to begin to take those things on the side. We kind of encourage mediocrity. And when we allow mediocrity to thrive in a society, excellence fails. And then it becomes difficult to build statesmen. That is why in a country like Sierra Leone, you don't have statesmen. People who can say, I will stand up and tell the president the truth. I will stand up and tell when country is not going well, who stands up? All other countries. You look at tiny South Africa, look at Malema. He is not winning, but he has an ideology based on economic freedom that he stands for. And he is moving up, and he is consistent as a political opposition leader in all these years. He is not jumping back and forth. Here, after 2018 election, I had great hopes for this country because we had C4C, we had NGC, you know, and we had people like Madam Cole. They were all in the opposition, including APC. So I was saying that this will be the opportunity for us to see more vigorous opposition. People like the likes of Kande Yumkela should be there. He should have been a household name by now, fighting. In fact, in Parliament, he should be the one who should be dragged out of Parliament because he is standing up for things. So we should have had a clear-cut somebody who says, "This I'm the alternative right now." Okay. But this is why I'm saying that if I am in the Gambia, every Gambian knows passenger vehicle, 1 before 3 BN. Senegal, I went to Senegal. The little kid, my niece, knew 1 before 3 BN. This is a culture. You must build it. You must work on it. So we cannot give our leadership excuses for not building a transformational society. So that's wrong.
Let's get to hear from Femi. I mean, specifically, let's talk about the Unity Party. I know you're still interested in running for the post of the flag bearer of the party, except otherwise, tell me you're not. So, well, I mean, how or when do we get to see the Unity Party putting out a name and a face to who fronts the party for the presidency?
Well, we're hoping that our meeting tomorrow is going to be one of something tangible is going to come out of it. I hold my breath. I'm waiting to exhale because I did call the executive secretary and I said, I hope the chairman is going to be present. And if chairman is watching, I hope you are going to be present. And well, we can have, you know, we're Sierra Leoneans. We don't have to be enemies. We don't have to be authoritarian. Success is collaboration, it's compromise, it's discussion. And I'm very much for that. And I said on whatever radio station I was on that we don't need to be enemies. And you need to simply be fair. You need to be fair and you need to be accommodating. That you know political parties have different strengths, economic strength, financial strengths. And one day I did say to them that, have you ever just called a round table to say, political parties, what are your problems? Why is it you have not been able to have offices? Why is this? Why is that? Like the parent institution that you're supposed to be. Call us to a round table and let's just talk. But instead, I listened to his interview, the chairman I'm talking now, his interview where they were asking him this new act that you want, where it's one where they are soliciting and have acquired a lot of power. You know, they want to be able to bark and they want to be able to bite. Now, once you're looking for all this power, which you now have, you must keep at the back of your mind, job, political parties. No political parties, no job. So we are your customers and we're in this together. And they have to realize that the democratic space and political parties all over the world, because people are quick to quote what happens in other countries. There is nothing that says if you have a political party, you must contest every single election. It doesn't mean. Political parties must have that freedom to move around, whether to contest, whether to come up with programs, ideas, interactions. It can be different. I mean, Germany has a beer party. They were encouraging people to drink more beer and less vodka. You know, things like that. So it doesn't mean that when you want to attack Ms. Claudia Sco, they have their trolls on social media who tried to attack me. Now, I have developed an unbelievably thick skin. It was thick before politics, and now it's like leather. And they will be using terms like, Mrs. 0.2%. I'm like, no, I was 0.1%, but I'm a proud loser. And why do you feel it necessary to come down to physical insults to make your point? Why now the whole issue with PPRC is giving people fuel? And imagine a parent institution like the PPRC sends me a letter, and the next thing I know, they've leaked it onto social media. That is unethical. But again, I say that's fine. The social media is open to all of us, good and bad. But if they want to really foster the democratic space, allow things to really, people to really grow and new ideas. Are you also aware, I mean, I'll take you back to 2018, for example, when political parties were behaving in ways that were seen as, they were contravening even the very provision for which they were formed, because our constitution is saying, I mean, political parties are formed to shape the political will of the people and also help in us achieving our socio-economic standings. But some political parties in 2018, for example, were not in line with, I mean, their conduct were not in line with that particular provision, for example. So some parties were behaving in ways that even jeopardized the nation's peace. Yes, we saw clips, we saw where members of political parties were behaving in ways. So, and the PPRC said, there's nothing literally we can do because we do not have enforcement powers. At this point, we only can register. So,
but looking at all of those things, are we not seeing now, see, perhaps some sanity might be introduced into the political space with all of what is happening now?
The PPRC always had a path, but they found the path a little complicated. And sometimes when you have a difficult path to actually deregister a party, it might be a good thing, in that you cannot then deregister a party on a whim. You cannot then deregister a political party because it's not in line with some of what you want. So I think having a difficult route to actually deregister a party is a good thing. I don't think it should be made easy, because we then see, I mean, the situations that are playing out now, we're seeing, I can say it's injustice. And I actually said on national radio that I was disappointed that our chairman is a lawyer. And the way I see letters coming out of PPRC, I begin to question that your loyalty should be to the people of Sierra Leone and to the people that you're there to supervise.
We'll leave that conversation for your meeting tomorrow. Let me quickly bring in Ibrahim Tomi. You know,
okay.
Professor Njai was talking about people being transformative, and the change itself has to be holistic. And referencing Dr. Kande Kole-Yumkela, who, in his estimation, I mean, would have been this very vocal and bold in Parliament. But let's look at, for example, the running mate position of the SLPP. We've seen in 2018, well, before 2018, an association of aspiring flag bearers of the SLPP was formed. And the only aspirant who was not part of that association was the retired Brigadier Julius Madabiu. I had an interview with him, and I asked him about the coming in of Kande Kole-Yumkela. And he said Kande Kole-Yumkela was a political new kid in the block. So, I mean, put together the entire association going to election, he would defeat them. And he defeated them. We saw Kande Kole-Yumkela defected. He left the party, engineered the formation of the National Grand Coalition. He became the flag bearer of the party, went to the 2018 elections as presidential candidate. And again, well, he is now in Parliament. We've seen a year to the 2023 elections. They met, and the president invited him, come home, come over, this is your home, this is your place. And Kande Kole-Yumkela told the president, onward. Since then, we've been trying to reach out to Kande Kole-Yumkela, Honorable. Let's have a talk. Let's understand what is happening with the NGC, whether you're still interested in running as flag bearer for the NGC, or you're going home, which, I mean, those Femi Claudius Kola and others who've left this country have all come back home. So, even on New Year's Day, Kande Kole-Yumkela was spotted celebrating with the president and leader of the SLPP. The current vice president, who doubles by the constitution of the SLPP as a deputy leader of the SLPP, Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallow, has not been announced as running mate. But Kande Kole-Yumkela, speculations are that he is going to be the running mate of President Julius Madabiu. Where does that put the race for the vice presidents in the SLPP?
No, that's such an
Loaded.
I'm certainly not going to respond to everything you said there. But I'll start with the point about the decision that President Biu has to make for his running mate. In the current context, it is perhaps the most important decision that he has to make before June 24, 2023, because, you know, we've always had issues since 1996. Pakaba and late Dembi, and then, you know, former President Kuma and Sam Sumana. Now, you know, the rumors about a not so friendly or warm or positive relationship between the president and his vice have been rumbling. But the truth is that the president has to make that decision. I have been asking myself, why did they have to endorse the president and wait for such a long period before he gets to make that announcement about his running mate? It only fears the rumors, the speculations that we're hearing. Unfortunately, they say, I mean, wherever there is what, smoke, there's fire. But I don't dwell in rumors and speculations. The president will have to make that decision. But the fact that it's taken him a long time to make that decision, to make that announcement, is fueling these rumors. And I don't think it is even good for the head of his own party. Because what that means now is the Judah faction may now be saying, the president doesn't want us. There are people who work with the president who don't want us. And you don't know what that mean for even the party. So we are talking about the APC and the other political parties not having sort of decided on their presidential candidates.
Yes.
But that decision of whose president Bio's running mate is going to be is as important as the flag bearer of the APC and the other political parties. That is really critical. Now on Kanda Yumkela, because you said a lot about him. I mean, let's not forget, you know, in this place, perhaps I'm aging, so I try to step back when some things are said.
Go ahead.
The NGC, in my recollection in this country, and I've been around for a very long time, even though most people think I'm very young, NGC is perhaps the only political party that has consistently, for nearly, let's say 4 years, consistently focused on one major issue: economics of our lives.
Yes.
And let's give them some credit, you know. And Kanda Yumkela played a major role in all of that. Of course, you have to give it to Dennis Bright.
Yes.
But even in Parliament, you can play 1,000 sound bites of Kanda Yumkela on where he stands. As recent as last year, he was giving his views about the economy, what needed to be done differently, that we have to be realistic. Things are not going well with the economy. We've got to make adjustments. So I hold no brief for him, but I just try to not basically wash the baby with the bathwater in discussions like this. The truth is that clearly he has a decision to make himself. Kanda Yumkela. Yes. Because we all spotted photos of him and the president. It shouldn't mean anything, to be honest, because if we're talking about the country where we should all interact across party lines, we should embrace each other. It's Christmas. Let's celebrate, right? It should mean nothing.
Yes, yes.
In a normal world, it shouldn't. But in the current context, it does.
Everything
because there is a rumor linking him to that position of a running mate. And if he goes to the president's village and the president is tweeting about his invitation and all of that, it sends, obviously, jitters in the Judah camp. I get that. It's politics and everything. The optics, you have to manage it. That is really the truth. And Kanda Yumkela, the one thing you should also give to him is he's good at forming groups, right? You talked about the Association of Aspiring Candidates. Yes. He also supported the setting up of what? The COP, the COP, right? So that is the thing about him. He says, even the National Grand Coalition, his idea was to set up a party that will reach across. But it's not going to happen in our context. So that is a good point to go back to Prof's point. Listen, I'm a big fan of transformational ideas. That's what I've been talking about all year long, all my life. But what I'm saying is that it's not about saying it is impossible. I'm not saying, oh, let's give our leaders a slack. I am saying, beyond saying it, what is going to enhance it? What are the ingredients? You don't just put it out there. There are ingredients. Listen, talking about national development plans, let's even pretend like we are the only ones talking about this. Our governments have developed, under former President Nkrumah, we had a national conference on what? On transformation and development. There is a whole report which provides a blueprint for transforming this country. We have the National Midterm Development Program. All political parties, so talking about, you think this was just developed by APC? No, it wasn't. It was a consultative outcome of a consultative process across the country. Everyone, every district, consultations were had. We had the National Midterm Development. So it's not about a lack of a plan that provides a long-term transformation of this country. Which is why I think, in addition to the beautiful idea of having a plan that provides a vision for transforming this country, I honestly think that the question that we should ask ourselves is, apart from the leadership, which we can all agree has been wanting for a very long time, perhaps since independence, what else can we do in a practical sense that will give leaders little or no, our leaders little or no chance of veering off that plan? That's the conversation that we should be having.
The ownership.
That's the ownership.
The ownership I was talking about.
You understand?
Yeah.
We can own it, but at the end of the day, I'm just saying, let's think harder. I like discussions like that. Yeah. But if you just leave it, President View, if it does just 5 years, and another president comes and kicks out the frequent, because the Prof. I tell you, you more than anyone else should know that most of the conversations that we're having, I tell you, at the heart of moving this country forward, I honestly believe is education. Education is empowerment. Why do you why do you think the way you do? No disrespect to our uneducated compatriots. There's something that education does that money doesn't do.
Yes.
I mean, it liberates your mind. It helps you think through everything, the decisions you make. So that is why I believe our long-term transformation, I mean, this is not a case for the free quality education, but I'm just saying, if we are really talking seriously, I like, and thank God we are talking at these platforms, can we hear the various presidential candidates who will be coming here, starting with Madam Claudia School, their position.
If she's elected.
By her party, yes. You know she's going to be elected. She's too strong to lose in the Unity Party. But let's know what their platform is on education. Right. Because for me, all of us should be concerned, should care about education, regardless of where you stand. It doesn't have to be free quality education in the way it is implemented by the current administration, but let's just know what their plans, their vision is for education. That's something that we should perhaps start with. Okay. In addition to the very complex issues that really need to go with our sort of transformation, national transformation agenda. So, Prof, let's be clear about this. Yes. I do not suggest that we cannot do it. No, I don't want to leave you with the impression that I'm creating impossibilities about it. No, I'm just saying, how do we enhance the success?
A model should be devised.
How do we really enrich that sort of idea?
I do understand. I understand that because there are there is the big thinking and there is a small steps to get to it.
Yes.
But and I think that as a country, let's look at examples of other countries nearby where things are working a little bit. Let's look at a country like Cape Verde. Cape Verde has said to themselves, if president comes from the ruling, one party wins the presidency, the other gets the prime ministership, right? So in Cape Verde, as a country, they are affording to have a very healthy democracy where the parties are actually, coalescing together. That's what I'm trying to say here. We have to begin to think...
Both the ruling and the opposition.
Both the opposition, yes.
Ruling and opposition.
And opposition. Yeah. So you have prime minister from the opposition, president from this.
There you go.
So the thing is that we have to begin as a country to have a system that works for us, that's around that national. That's why I said our politics has to be also, we need to bring in the intellectualism, we need to bring in the knowledge systems so that we create a system that works for us. It doesn't make sense to us in terms of the resources we are spending on too many elections, too many things.
So it's clear you and Tommy are on the same page. The system currently does not support that. So we have to build that.
If it doesn't work since independence,
yes.
You have to question it.
That's the truth. Exactly.
You have to question it.
Exactly. That's why
I have said this, but in terms of political system and even our economic system, the way we are funding our national plans and national vision, it's not going to build us out of poverty. Not in 50.
And if I should add something,
yes.
So, I like that Tommy mentioned some of these national plans, and we've had all sorts of plans. Since I was little in this country, I remember one of the best finance ministers we've had here, Salia Jesuseri. I was a kid. They will talk about structural adjustment policies. We've had, PRSP 1, 2, we've had agenda for prosperity, agenda for change. We've had all sorts of plans. The difference between those plans and what I'm talking about is most of these plans are not rooted from us. It's about external people making plans for us. It's about the UN or other World Bank or IMF or other organizations making plans for us. But how about us Sierra Leoneans coming together? Like today, we say, without any amount of greed and personal aggrandizement or narcissism, we say APC, SLPP, everybody, including Unity, everyone, including the bread maker, the market woman, everyone, we come together in this room and sit down and say, this is the future of our country. It's not the future for World Bank, it's not the future for IMF, it's not a UN thing. We don't need DSAs to come to this event. We don't need per diem, we don't need anything. Now we sit down and talk about how would they move with country before, how would they solve with water problem, how would they solve with food security problem, how would they solve with education problem, how would they solve with issues. Think about it today, competitive wise. It's not just, this is not just about election politics or about something, it's also about the future of our youth, how competitive our youth will be. Today, when you look at, I look at countries, I go all around Africa, and I'm looking at young kids in Kenya, in Zambia, in South Africa, in Ghana, in Senegal, the competitive advantage, because the curriculums, the educations they have, the things they are exposed to, technologies, and other stuff. Again, we are in 2023, and just this week, I'm reminded that we begin and still the worker force for avoli rubber, forget water force in the morning. Bail water tea, how many o'clock before they go to school. And they go to school again, they're tired. How are we creating that competitive advantage as a nation against all these countries?
Let me quickly hear from both of you on, let me start with you, on Dr. Kande Koleyi-Yumkela's, I would not want to say crisis, but him coming back home to the SLPP as per the invite of the leader of the SLPP, and the talks about him becoming the running mate of the SLPP. Where does that leave the NGC? Dilemma, exactly. I like that. Thank you.
I think I will skip that. I think Ibrahim has done that. I'll skip that. I think, but it is a decision for him to make, and I think it's important again for this country, whether he goes to the SLPP or he stays in the NGC. To me, what is important for this country is for us to be able to make a difference in the lives of the average Sierra Leonean. If Kande Yumkela happens to be in SLPP and that is what is good for this country, that's fine with me. If I see him as someone that will bring that transformational thing with the current leadership, that's an excellent, that's a good pair. We see he can sell the messaging, he can do something that can help to kind of translate some of the ideas of this government to something more visible transformation for this country. That is good. All I want to see in this country is that some of us, though we are young, but our generation you don't have much time in this earth. I really want to see that in Sierra Leone we begin to change those numbers.
All right.
56% poverty, lack of this, the bottom of
and
the
it
index.
Takes leadership like all of us.
It takes leadership.
So Femi, what does if Dr. Kande Koleyi-Yumkela goes back to VSLP, what does that mean for the consortium?
I don't think we're doing, I honestly do not think that we're doing him, I think we're doing him an injustice. I think it would, in the interest of fair play, and we're talking about somebody who's highly educated, who's highly articulate, who can articulate his position very well. And I
Who
don't
has also gone silent for the largest part after many attempts of reaching him to comment.
I think just perhaps he's out of the country. I think you should persevere and get him on the show, honestly. But as the chairperson of COP,
Of COP, yes.
I would be sad.
Why?
I would be sad because I know the quality.
Is it a mobilizer?
I know the quality of the man, and I know his heart is the heart for Sierra Leone.
Right.
But as an individual, we need to respect. That's the beauty of democracy. That's democracy at work. So whatever it is, the chips are going to fall where they may. But I will pray that, you know, he stays with
Gentlemen and
the
lady, let me run through some messages on Facebook. We have many of them, hundreds of them this evening. Unfortunately, time would never permit me to go through even 5 or 10% of them. But please forgive me. Samuel Medensi says, saying the budget allocated to education is huge, but it does not reflect on the people of this country. Swissman is saying, if Kande Kolayum Kela goes back to the SLPP, it's not a crime. It depends on the wisdom and difference he's going to create to develop Sierra Leone. Fode Mustafa Toure is saying there are no independent institutions, full stop. All institutions created after the end of the war have collapsed, just like the ones that existed after independence. Reviving and amending the constitution is the only way out to fix a document that was written during one-party rule. The president has too much powers and everyone is afraid of losing their jobs. The only remaining working institution, Auditor General, has also beaten the dust. It's almost 5 years, and the much talked about constitutional review during the last campaign has almost died, and I know it will be a campaign item. The constitution makes the president too powerful, so why will anyone think he will want to lose that? We have to make the comfort, we have to take that comfort away from the president. Masere Jane is, okay, let me skip through some of these ones that do not speak to what we're discussing. One of President Bio's flagship program is education. If anyone is caught playing around it, you would be considered as an opposition. There is no way to compare the education of now or 4 years back. Okay. Brahim Darami Kemata is saying, bravo to Madam Femi. This is the type of conversation we would like to hear. May God continue to protect, bless, and keep you for the good work. Thank you. All right. That's from Darami, from Pujeun there. Our leaders should practice clean politics. Samuel Medensi is saying, Mohamed Kuroma is saying, they parade teachers for aiding exams malpractice, then the big thieves. Okay, that's not what we're looking at right now. Madam, okay, Alex Goba Vandi, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take that. The love of political parties than country is killing us slowly. Some is saying that. Professor Njai, you sound, we're saying the truth. We all know how these so-called opposition parties have destroyed the system. We guys are talking about. When Femi is talking about APC, she moderates. Okay, interesting. We don't need strong leaders in Sierra Leone. We need strong institutions to change the lives of our people. Our people are suffering. Everything. Swissman is saying. Tijan Bangra is saying, how can we have a national agenda when people are voted on the basis of manifestos? Professor, are you saying manifestos are not important in politics because every political party has its own plans? Ibrahim Jakema is saying this conversation should have become more interesting if a politician. Okay, we keep using late Dr. Magufuli as an example, but we've never talked about how the tough-handedness in which he used to implement those plans. The Tanzanians love their country more than their political parties, but in Sierra Leone, we love our political parties more than the country. When the ACC paraded teachers for aiding and abetting exams malpractices, the opposition parties politicized it and made it look like a good way of life. Magufuli never had such situation during his tenure because once his actions were genuine, the people of Tanzania gave him their fullest support. But in Sierra Leone, we have more of hypocrite people hiding behind civil society organizations. Okay. Tigi Kaba is saying, this is one of the best programs. Okay, well, save the compliments. We move on. How can we get a national agenda when every political party has their own manifestos? Are you saying we should kill all political parties' manifestos because people have voted on the basis of manifestos? I'm going to take at most 5 more messages quickly because of time. We have to round off the conversation. Great idea, Mr. Tommy, on drawing up a national vision for moving the country forward. Also, political parties should operate in line with Vision 2063, the Africa we want. President Bill is already very much on the right trajectory towards realizing that vision. That's from James C. Massakoy. Alhaji Ishmael Kamara is saying, Samuel, I sometimes admire you when coming up. Okay, we thank you, but we'll have to skip that. IB Rahim Chamsila is saying, thank you, Professor Njai, for speaking for the ordinary Sierra Leoneans. You are speaking my mind. Cheers. Accountability, come on. They are politicians. They know how to handle themselves, bro. They are. Okay. Interesting. So many comments. We have Dr. Jonathan Sandy. Is saying is in Kailaun, is it? No, Kono. But he is saying the new PPRC Act is meant to close the political space for most parties who contested with the president. How by PPRC going after the political parties that are yet to provide financial and audit reports, office spaces, and interfere with their internal democratic processes? While the PPRC... Okay, Dr. Sandy, unfortunately, you're not here. I was going to ask a question around, the criteria that are in place for a political party to be formed or certified by the PPRC. Samuel Gretchen, my take on this topic is that our leaders are not sincere to themselves and the nation. There has never been a government that is made up of only one tribe or region. What are these people doing to promote their regions? What's their plan to take development to the different localities? God bless you and your panelists tonight. Okay, I think I have to hold the messages there. We have many of them. Unfortunately, time is not our best friend. He's chasing us dangerously. But as a way of providing reforms, saying what could be the reformatory way forward if we are to get the caliber of people with competence. Because what political pundits have always advanced in the form of arguments is that the politics we practice has always been that of compensation and not on competence. So how then do we get, starting from those who would want to be in charge of appointing those that should deliver, how do we then get the right people to come and front these different political outfits as parties to be presidential candidates, and all Sierra Leoneans having the opportunities to judge them on their character and competence, what they would deliver, what's the way forward? I start off with you, Dr. Njai, quickly.
So I think, as a country, we've been 50 years, or over 50 years now, since independence, of trying to move this country on a specific trajectory of progress. And we're seeing challenges.
Right.
We're adopting various things, we're seeing challenges. And that's why I feel like as a country, we need to take a pause. Because to be honest, every Sierra Leonean who is honest with themselves will tell you every day that this country is broken. The systems are broken. The institutions are the systems are the country is polarized, and there is so many things that is challenging, which has been talked about today.
Right.
What we need is to really think through and be reflective and think deep about an agenda that works for our country with a system. And then having manifestos and all those things should be geared, should work towards that agenda. The manifesto should not be, it's like, for instance, if we all agree as a country in our national agenda that we need to create Lunge Bridge, right? The manifestos of different political parties is just to tell us how will they make the Lunge Bridge at a cost-effective way. This is the approach. It's no longer about coming with, say, we're going to make Mamama Airport instead of Lunge Bridge. No. We all agreed as a country, Lunge Bridge is the thing. But again, to me, what is really important is also about something around education that Tommy was talking about. But the most important part of education is about civic and political education. Mm-hmm. Civic and political education, that people understand their rights and their responsibilities. And people who are elected understand also their own rights and their responsibilities. And we also, beyond that, understand that elections by themselves are not a means to an end. We must deliver on the basic principles, the basic aspects of economics, and the basic aspects of development for our citizens. And to me, we have to begin to think about, because if we don't solve the issues of bread and butter, we haven't solved the issues of poverty. It's very difficult to remove the label politics. How do we create statesmen in this country? To me, that's one of our biggest challenges. Okay. Because, you know, if you are not able to create statesmen from every field, and going into the things, what happens is that everyone is just going to support this person, even if they don't believe in it, because basically we all want for libele. And then we have to think about disentangling resource to regions or ethnicity. Say, for instance, if they don't elect SLPP again, or everything will go towards Bo South or something. If they elect APC, everything will go towards North or something. If they elect this, no. We have to, that's why the national agenda is critical. That then, if that happens, along with rethinking our politics, for instance, I will boldly say, like something that happens either in one of these South American countries, either it's Uruguay or Paraguay or one of those countries. What they did, essentially, is to say, every 4 or 5 years, I think, the president comes from one region. So you cannot get president from this other region. It comes from this. Then they elect president from that region. The other time they rotate, they go to the other region. The other time they go to the other region. And then, because what we really have to think about is, you see, democracy is how you make your own soup work. Okay. That pot works for you. And we have to think about Sierra Leonean context and say, how do we create more inclusion and diversity and empower everyone.
All right, Femi?
And that's the reason why I think COP is the only answer. A consortium, a coalition of different political parties coming together, representing all the regions. When you see COP, you see Sierra Leone. You then have a shared governance where every voice matters, every opinion counts, where we can, because what we're seeing now is not sustainable. It really isn't. And even one thing that Tommy was saying is when even the election comes, people will hesitate to vote out of their color because of the fear that if a mistake vote for this party, when they can sack we all. When they can victimize we all. And that's the reason why I personally am committed to the concept of COP, where there are people there that will watch out for everybody. And any decision that is made is not just going to be, it has pleased. It has pleased all of us. You know, and we can really put back the consultation, put back the engagement, put back collaboration. All those things are missing now.
Okay. I would have to send invoice later for selling COP on my show.
Good point there. One thing I'd like to say quickly is, generally, our leaders reflect us. They reflect our aspirations. They reflect what we accept. So, if our acceptability level for corruption, for all the madness that we've been talking about, if it's high, don't expect the politicians to behave differently. I'll tell you, I'm beginning to observe certain things that we have said to ourselves we can't accept anymore. For example, when a journalist is arrested, or before a libel was criminalized, or a politician like Madame Ploder's School is arrested and detained, you just see the reaction. I mean, there's the politics. Those who support the ruling party may be defending it, but you can see, even in their own conversations, you can see that there's an imagined level of rejection or repugnance to certain undemocratic practices. If you sustain over a period of time, you get to a point where no one will do that. So that's the kind of thing which we have not had, unfortunately, for things like corruption. The big matters that really affect us as a country. And that's why I think we have to have stress conversion. But 3-4 quick things I'll talk about. First, going forward, we have to deliver the 2023 elections. It's critical. Prof has said a lot about how it is critical. Perhaps he says it's perhaps the most important election. I say every election, every general election is important. It's a decision that you have to make. Let's make sure that it is delivered in a peaceful and credible manner and ensure that complaints, and this is my point, election-related complaints that come to our courts are resolved in a speedy manner and based on the substantive complaints made, which is why we commend the Chief Justice that the complaint against the proportional representation system is being had starting tomorrow, and we hope that a well-reasoned decision that we all understand and hopefully accept will be put out there. And then the third thing, constitution. We've talked about the constitution. There is no way any of these ideas that we've talked about is going to happen, including tweaking the political system and even getting the national front agenda without reviewing our national constitution. That constitution was done way back in 1991, reflecting the 1978 constitution and perhaps the earlier constitutions. We have to do one that works for the 21st century. And finally, to address poverty, I tell you, we've got to deliver the big picture issues, perhaps the big transformational ideas that we're talking about. If you fix education, infrastructure, agriculture, health, housing, that's how you're going to begin to end poverty. And that's the only way we can get prosperity. Until then, Samuel, my brother will get power. I wait to can't give me handouts. My sister be president. I wait for.
And all that Tommy is saying can only happen with leadership.
Of course. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
And that's why I have to plug in for my Science and Leadership Festival in Kabbalah, January 20 to 22nd. So you all are invited. I want to see Madam Claudia's there.
Send me something.
For me to come. Because we need to begin to inject leadership from the bottom to the top. Everybody understand what it is.
Thank you very much, Professor Alhaji Njai, founder, Project 1808, Femi Claudius Cole, 2018 presidential candidate of the Unity Party and acting chair of the Consortium of Progressive Political Parties, Lawyer Ibrahim Tomi, Executive Director, Center for Accountability and the Rule of Law. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady, for being part of the conversation here tonight. And this is where we end tonight's program, and thank you all for being part of the conversation. To those of you who watched us on DSTV channel 399, on local channel 33 AYV television, listen to us on FM 101.7, and those of you who followed us on all our different social media platforms, many thanks for being part of the conversation. Be sure to catch a fresh edition of this show here again next week, same time, same station. Until then, my name is Samuel Weisbangura. The show has been AYV on Sunday, and up next is our AYV Primetime News. Take care of yourself and have a lovely night.